Welcome to all our friends from around the world. Here we are, so excited, Olivier, Segura, and I, Inezita, Gay-Eckel, to be with you inside the Museum of Mineralogy, the Musée de Mineralogie it's called. It's also called Paris Tech Mines. It's the School of Mines, and it's a museum with 4,500 different specimens out of 100,000 that they have in total. It was founded in 1794 to share the natural treasures of France with all the world. Make sure, put it on your list. When you can, plan to be here in Paris. If you're in Paris, you can reserve now. You can reserve and come and see it. Everyone must. These minerals, these gems, these marvels are here, and today it's a part of really what we're going to talk about, because our topic today is the art side and the science side of diamonds. Before we start though,
yes, let's take a look at diamonds. Of course, we will talk about diamonds.
A quick peek.
Yes.
Just can't resist taking a look.
Here at the museum, few diamonds are on display with some simulants, some synthetics, some imitations, just to understand what is the diamonds, and of course some replicas of one famous diamond, the Cullinan diamonds, with these amazing rough diamonds of more than 3,000 carats. Amazing stone.
The original Cullinan is the size actually of a large Idaho baked potato. And the various Cullinans you now can see a lot on Queen Elizabeth II. She wears them. They nickname them Granny's chips.
Granny's chips, famous one. Some malachite for our friends, gemologists. You know this carbonate with copper, azurite, cerusite with lead, and of course gemstones.
We can't resist stopping at the colored gems. Just to give everybody an idea for when they come and visit, the fire opals of Mexico, the gorgeous beryls of all sorts. I love Heliodor, named for the sun, the golden beryl. People don't realize that beryl comes in all those colors. The morganite, named for J.P. Morgan. And then the tourmalines. The tourmalines, which leads us to perhaps...
Oh yes, your favorite maybe samples we have here at the museum.
Favorite of today for sure, and every time I come I have to at least stop and gasp, especially when the sun is setting now at 7 p.m. Paris time, but when the sun shines through this. These are tourmalines embedded in a giant slice of quartz. Now I had a hint from the great Eloise Gaillou that when you come here you must do something, which is you are allowed to go behind and look at the tourmalines, the pink and the green, the formation of the tourmalines that are embedded in this big giant slice of quartz. Look at the amethyst, of course. Go everywhere. Just feast your eyes, feast your mind, feast your soul, because that's what these marvels are. Minerals are both beautiful, but they're also very useful. They can save your life. There are secrets still to be unlocked from minerals that perhaps will be unlocked from inside Paris Mines Tech School, where we are today.
Exactly, some wonderful example of rutile.
I love the rutile, nicknamed in jewelry, angel hair or hair of Venus.
For our friend gemologists, of course, corundum and rubies.
The corundum with the giant rubies embedded in the stone, it almost makes you want to drool looking at it. And that's a good time from rubies to diamonds.
Let's talk about diamonds.
Yeah. Let's get started with our 3 chapters today. What is a diamond? How is a diamond, if we may say, born? And if we're going to put on our miner's hat, around the world, where do we find diamonds? So here we go. Let's get started. 3 chapters, 1 hour to respect everybody's time. We like to divide into the 3 chapters with each one. It's a tradition with our conversations. Please do chat on the chat box. Say hi to each other. Tell everybody in the world where you come from. It's so much fun to find out about all our friends around the world. Let's the questions will be saved by our colleague and friend, Ghislain Aucreman, who will share the questions with us at the end so that we can answer. But meanwhile, the chat box will be there for you all to share. Be sure that you click for everyone on the chat box, not just for the lecturers, so that you all can see each other's comments. Starting out, how can we start out to do a discussion of the art side and the science side of diamonds without thinking, at least for a moment, of Marilyn Monroe in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, 1953, when she makes the famous immortal speech that she just loves finding out new ways to use diamonds, putting them on her head. She's discovering the tiara for the first time. Now, when we look at this beautiful black and white picture, we're thinking of the optical effects of diamonds. We're thinking about the glamour, the beauty of diamonds. If you will indulge me, the Americanism, bling bling. Yes. And deliberately bling bling because this is the modern cut of the diamond. This is the diamond optimized for reflection and refraction of light. But where does that all come from? What's the scientific basis for it? And what's the basis among our popular belief and our collective imagination?
Yes, we wanted to start, maybe you know a lot, of course, about diamonds. And what do you know about diamond? Maybe you know about the 4 C's. It means the 4 C's, the valuation criteria for the diamonds, which was harmonized by the GIA in the 50s. So in English, each C represents a criteria for color, clarity, carat, and cut. And of course, all these criteria are very important for the valuation. And here we have a wonderful example of one of the world auction records for a colorless diamond. And you can see every diamond is described by letters like D, F, etc. for the color and for the clarity.
This type of diamond that you would see if you take a stroll around Place Vendôme, you would not see elsewhere in the world because they're extremely, extremely rare, a diamond like that.
Yeah, so all these criteria are reported on a report. And so you can check in every diamond report all the important information.
And if you're really lucky, take a look. If you happen to have diamond certificates lying around, especially for French graded diamonds, that once upon a time when I met Olivier Segura, he was the president of the LFG, the Laboratoire Française de Gemologie. Went to meet him to discuss his great passion, which is pearls. But the
also.
Well, yes, and the LFG, I found out from him, was founded before the GIA.
Exactly.
It was the first one.
1929.
And he could have signed one of your certificates.
But diamond is much more than a value.
It's so much, and it's so much from all the way back, as Olivier will give us from the scientific point of view, and we'll discuss a little bit from the artistic point of view, and by that I mean the myths and the legends and the popular imagination. As I said, it goes all the way back to the origins of time. It's hard to find a picture of the plow of Chronos, but the word Chronos, C-H-R-O-N-S, was the origin of chronology, time. So literally in Greek legend, in Greek origin myth, the origin of the universe was created by the plow of Chronos, who created time. A focus here is another Greek legend. It's a focus of, as you can see, it looks like several dogs being held by a big chain by someone very muscular. And what that is that's a detail from an engraving that we found in the Metropolitan Museum of New York of one of the labors of Hercules. Hercules was too much for the gods. The Greek gods were jealous of him because he was too godlike. They decided that they could get rid of him by giving him 10 labors. They never thought he'd get to the 10th labor. One of them was that he had to restrain or tame the dog with 3 heads that guarded the gates of hell. This dog is named Cerberus. The chains, and that's why we show you the detail, in the Greek legend were made of adamas, A-D-A-M-A-S. Adamas is diamond. It's the Greek word for diamond. It means what? It doesn't mean bling bling, glamour, Marilyn Monroe. It means indomitable, unconquerable, invincible, cannot be stopped. And therefore, it became right away in the origin of time, the beginnings of our thought process, the symbol of power, the symbol of protection, the symbol of something that can't be vanquished. On the left is a sculpture of Indra from around 1265 from an exquisite Indian temple. And if we look at the detail of Indra's right hand, he is holding the Vajra. The Vajra is the word in Hindu for both thunder, in Sanskrit, for both thunderbolt and diamond. So the thunderbolt and the diamond are Vajra. And Indra when he holds that thunderbolt, he owns the lightning, he owns the thunderbolt, he owns the beginning and ending of life. He is at the origin, Indra is at the origin with his Vajra, is the origin of the spiritual tradition that continues through to Hinduism and to Buddhism. So we find the Vajra in both religions. The diamond is a part of the Indian consciousness from 26 centuries ago, because the Indians were the people who had the diamonds. Now, if we look at those points on that Vajra, Olivier is going to show us a model of an actual diamond crystal. What does a natural diamond crystal, a beautiful one, they don't all look like that.
Yes, we will talk about the shape just a few slides later, but this is exactly the shape of the diamond we can find in Earth when you are mining.
And if you look at those two tips of that weapon, that lightning, that thunderbolt, that owning of nature, it looks just like that diamond. So it's very, very clear, the belief, not quick, but from the beginning of civilization, when diamonds were found and those who had them, they ascribed this kind of power to them. And the closer they were to them, the more they used them and the more they understood them. But when they were further away, the more the legend and the mythology and the renown spread, the more they wanted to find diamonds. Of course, it's one of the essences of humanity. We hear about something like that that has that power and protection, we're going to want to find it. In order to celebrate that and think about it, we're using an incredible map that was made around 1370 to 1380 by a man named Abraham Crescus. He was a Portuguese and Jewish map maker in Mallorca, and he made this map, which is in the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, because it became the map of Charles V. Charles V had it as his great treasure. Think about it, we did not have Google Earth. A map was everything. Every child knows about treasure maps and looking for treasure. On this map, there's a detail that matters particularly to us today. It matters to us because it is a section, a rather big section of the map dedicated to the finding of diamonds. How do you find diamonds? You see the pictures in front of you? You might be a little bit mystified what those are. If you look carefully in the background, it's two big mountains creating giant cliffs. And at the bottom of those cliffs is a deep pit, a big hole, if you will, save that thought. And in that big hole, venomous, deathly, unimaginably deathly snakes, and I'm terrified of snakes, guarding the diamonds. So if you wanted the diamonds, you had to figure out how to get them. In the front are two guys. Hacking up that red stuff is meat, hacking up the meat with a giant knife, because they're going to throw the meat into the cliff and to the bottom of the gorge, and they're going to wait for the meat. Diamonds are going to stick to the meat. Raptors, meat-eating birds, carnivorous birds, are going to swoop down, pick up the meat, fly up, and archers are going to shoot the birds down and take the meat out of their beaks and pull the diamonds off. An interesting mining method. And you might say, why am I telling you this story? Well, because Epiphanius, the Archbishop of Cyprus, around 390s, the end of the 4th century, or whether it's Sinbad the Sailor stories, or whether it's Marco Polo. Here we have an exquisite miniature from around 1600, which a sultan ordered for his daughter. I find that very touching, which is now in the Morgan Library in New York. And there you have a very kind of practical, beautiful painting of those cliffs with the diamonds, with the pits, with the snakes, and the carnivorous birds. Of course, when you think of archers and ancient history, one of the things you might think of is Alexander the Great, and there was this connection of the idea that his archers would have been the expert ones who would shoot down the birds, and also the wrong location of saying that the diamonds were from the north of Pakistan.
Yes, that's very interesting to see from different times and different localities, different civilizations, they have the same myths and same legends.
And of course, because they believed in laws of correspondences, if something looked like something, it was. We just looked, and when you come to the museum, you'll see the topazes, the quartz, that from a distance you might think were diamonds. They were found in different places around the world, but there's something absolutely miraculously different about the diamond, which Olivier is going to tell us.
Yes, diamond is really, we said, a really wonderful material, but when we talk scientifically speaking, what is a diamond? So when we talk scientifically about a material, we need to talk about the chemical composition, and we need to talk about the atomic structure. For the diamonds, the structural classifications of minerals, diamond belongs to what we call the class, the native class. That means diamond is composed only by one kind of chemical element, and here, of course, you know, it's carbon. And when we talk about mineral composed of carbon, of course there is diamond, but we can think also about graphite. So that's why the atomic structure is very important, because in the case of diamonds, we have a very specific and very tough link between all the atoms. We call it a covalent bonding. So this link between all the atoms is very strong by the difference of graphite. And as you can see here on the animation on this slide, all the atoms of carbons are organized in space in a cube, like a cube. That's why we say also for the gemologist, diamonds is part of the cubic system. And as you see, this unit cell can organize and create and build some shape, different shape, as cube, as octahedron, as dodecahedron, and there are the shape as we can find the diamonds.
And when we find them like this, we can't help but think again of the Vajra of Indra. It's exactly, but that nobody touched that, except if you believe in whatever your religious system touched it. But other than that...
Exactly. Maybe we can think here that the diamond is polished, but that's not the case. All the shape, all the facets here are like natural, and you can find this kind of shape, like octahedron, in nature. So the same, we saw it. And we have to talk about the specific properties of the diamonds. Of course, you know, diamond is the hardest material you can find on Earth. The hardness is 10, and the Mohs scale from 1 to 10. So that means diamonds can be scratched only by another diamonds. And you don't have to do the, to differentiate with the toughness. Hardness is a resistant to scratch, and toughness is a resistant to the break.
Yes.
And when you see here the toughness, it's medium, so it's not very tough as a material. A very tough material, for example, could be jade, very tough, very resistant to the break. And
that's how humans were able to find what you call the cleavage to be able to ultimately cut diamonds.
Yes, in a very specific plane, there is some link inside the material which is a bit fragile. So if you hit on a very specific plane, you can cut the diamond quite easily. And for example, here you have this cleavage plane, and it was maybe the beginning of the cutting for diamonds.
It might have been an accident first, because as you say, if you accidentally hit with a hammer the cleavage spot, you might have caused the diamond to break, even though it's indomitable, invincible. It is, unless it breaks. All right, well, all those qualities, those seemingly miraculous qualities of the diamond, that adamas, that unconquerability, it leads to the human imagination being completely impassioned by this substance. And when we think of great art, and when we think of the Florentine era of the 1400s, we could definitely think of Botticelli. Botticelli, by the way, was a jeweler first, from a jeweler's family, and always had a jewel-like quality in his painting, and even in this particular case, actual jewels. It's almost, we could almost have one of those internet puzzles where you find how many diamonds and how many jewels can you find in this painting. If you take hint at, shall we say, what you would find at La Perla. If you were looking for very nice underwear at La Perla, you can find diamonds here in Pallas Athena's dress, because this is Pallas Athena. That's Athena, the goddess of wisdom, of intelligence, of socialization, of civilization, all enlightened aspects of life. She's also Minerva, if you're interested in the Roman point of view. And in this painting, she's taming the centaur. The centaur, half human, half horse or beast, is the incarnation of all our sort of baser instincts. This interesting painting was commissioned by the Medicis in 1482, so very early in Botticelli's career, for the marriage of one of their cousins. a marriage painting? Is it about the taming of the bestial nature of man in the marriage? Probably not. It's probably more about the wisdom and the enlightenment of the government of Florence by the Medicis. And they were very, very good at propagating incredible public relations. These are people who have come in just a couple of generations from being sheep herders and traders in wool to being bankers to the popes. Of course, they put their family in the Pope's throne as Pope, which makes it easier to be bankers to the popes. Invented modern banking, really. So what's going on in this painting with these diamond rings? 3 diamond rings, 4 diamond rings. You can find them on the sleeves. You can find, sometimes it's a motif of 3, sometimes it's a motif of 4. To go more into detail about what that means, this motto, superabo, means I will win. So it can mean, again, I will conquer stupidity, ignorance, I will bring civilization. It can also simply mean I will win. And at the bottom, very touching, is 2 sides of a medal for Cosimo de' Medici after he died. By the way, speaking of posthumous, the painting of Pallas Athena, the model was probably Simonetta Vespucci, who died very, very young and was unbelievably beautiful. And Botticelli loved her so much, actually worshipped her, that he begged when he died to be buried at her feet, and his wish was honored. So you have this way of even remembering after death what matters with the symbol of the diamonds. Now those rings, the points on those rings, they are just the kind of crystal that Olivier's holding in his hand. They have not really been, maybe a little polishing, maybe nothing.
Maybe nothing.
The ring on the left is rarissime, as we say in French, so rare. In fact, it was found by an Englishman in the Chelsea region in 2002, buried since the 1300s, and it was sold at Christie's in 2006, maybe one of the reasons why it still exists. It's engraved with Loyauté sans fin. It was found in England, but it's engraved with French, Loyauté sans fin. And on the right, we have a page from a book of miniatures for a wedding of the Sforza family in 1475. So this was a gift, a wedding gift. And it has what? You see this almost the same ring, kind of mysteriously with the 2 torches, the 2 flaming torches coming out of that ring, and the god of marriages from ancient Rome, Hymenaeus, holding another torch. There was a poem that went with it. It said, 2 torches with a ring of fire, 2 wills, 2 hearts, 2 passions, united in marriage with a diamond. So, by 1475, now we can touch on what you may have been thinking. You may have been thinking, what about love? What about the engagement ring and love? There has been an evolution, and through something, those of you who know me, I'm completely obsessed with the Middle Ages and the lapidary of the Middle Ages. In the lapidary of the Middle Ages, believe it or not, it was thought that if you took good care of stones, they were alive. They could even reproduce. You had to treat them properly. They had all these qualities. But the essential that's important for us was the idea of correspondences. Because the adamas could not be conquered, could not be defeated, it then came to become that symbol of loyalty and then ultimately the symbol of the bond of marriage. Now the bond of marriage, loyalty first, because these were contracts made between families, between countries, between governments, but eventually love came to be involved too, as you can tell from that poem I just cited. The evolution of the word itself. It goes from adamas to diamant, to diamond, D-I-A-M-A-N-T in French. A lot of the great words come from French, to diamond. Now, the diamant has something in it. It has aimant, A-I-M-A-N-T, which means loving. It's a present participle of to love in French. And it also means in French, magnet, the thing that draws paper clips. If you have a magnet, all the paper clips stick to it. Why? Because magnetite, another mineral, looks kind of like diamond in terms of its crystal shape, right?
Exactly.
So for the medieval mind, because it looked like it could be a magnet also. So they believed that the diamond could also be a magnet. Therefore, it could attract, laws of attraction. If it could attract and it couldn't be broken, couldn't break links, what better to symbolize marriage?
Perfect symbol.
Thus, the etymology, the evolution of the word, leads us even to the evolution of toward what we think of today. The diamond is forever, the diamond, the engagement ring. And in fact, L'École is preparing, just ready to give birth to, if we may say, a new course on the history of engagement rings, the history of engagement rings for a couple, 2.5 or so hours, which leads us toward the brilliant cut, the bling bling, the engagement ring that we know today.
Yes, I just wanted to highlight this previous slide with the cut and the black. As you can see here, the diamond is really black, the triangle. This is the diamond. And it's black because at that time, no matter the color, no matter the brilliance, but of course the representation. So usually the diamonds were represented black in many painting.
So, and that's why you may see the diamond black in a painting. It's difficult to photograph, even more difficult to render in a painting. Think about it. And when diamonds were not cut, when we evolved toward the brilliant cut, we start to see the white. When they were not cut, a convention, we call it, was to paint them against black. Now, we said that Kronos, creating time, had a diamond plow, an adamas plow. How does that relate to science, Olivier?
Yes, exactly, because we used to say diamond is forever, but for the scientists, a diamond is not forever because of the instability of these atomic structures. Of course, the instability will belong to the geological time scale. Of course, not in a human scale. You won't see your diamonds transforming in graphite. But you will see here in this wonderful time frame by GIA timeline, the age from the age of the Earth to the end of the dinosaurs. Diamonds are really the most ancient minerals we can find on Earth. Here you have the age of the Earth, 4.5 billion years ago. And you can see here the first diamonds found, for example, here in Gay-Eckel in Canada. They were aged 3.5 billion years ago. That's really incredible, amazing to imagine that you have diamonds in your hands that can be old as 3.5 billion years ago.
Not that far from that idea from the origin, from the Big Bang, if you will, almost.
Exactly. And when you see here for the youngest diamonds, were aged around 90 million years ago. And it's much more before the end of the dinosaur. We dated here 65 million years ago.
So by the time the dinosaurs were gone, the diamonds we have now were already there.
Exactly. So this is the age, the date of the creation, the crystallizations of the diamonds, not the date where the diamonds come at the surface of the Earth.
We'll look into that in our next chapter when we talk about how are diamonds made, where do they come from, how are they created.
Exactly. Diamond is really has a really physical and optical properties that are really related to the conditions of the geological formations. And of course, to crystallize a diamond, you need a carbon source. Here you have at the bottom of the Earth. You need a very specific energy to be able to combine the carbon atoms with a covalent bonding. To be able to create these structures, you need a very important pressure and a very important temperature. Here we have some data. High pressure, 50 to 70 kilobars. So to be able to imagine, to understand how important this pressure is, you need to imagine that you are holding 80 elephants on one hand. So this is 70 kilobars. So it's very
just 80 elephants.
Very, very important, very important pressure.
Now, is this happening today, or is there a way that this can be?
Alors, you need a source of carbon, so you need creation of the diamonds, but diamonds are created, are crystallized very deep, between 150 kilometers to 700 kilometers. But of course, to have diamond at the surface of the Earth, you need a lift, and you need a very specific lift to bring all the diamonds quite quickly, very fast, at the surface of the Earth. If not, all your diamonds will transform slowly into graphite. So this very specific lift is a kimberlite magmatism, very fast magmatism with a very lava, very, how to say, fluid lava. And this lava will bring all the diamonds to the surface of the Earth. This kind of magmatism is not existing anymore at the surface of the Earth. That means maybe you have some diamonds crystallizing in the depth of the earth, but we don't have anymore all the lift to bring the diamonds.
So we won't be getting them.
Not possible anymore.
So the diamonds we're going to find that our ancestors found, for instance, 2,600 years ago in India, they mined them how?
Yes, in what we call a secondary deposit. A secondary deposit was the first deposit found at that time. And in secondary deposit, it means you don't find the diamonds where they are bring to the surface of the earth. It means thanks to the erosions, wind, water, all the diamonds will be transported through the river, to the water, to the sea. In some places, they will concentrate in placers. And here you can find, by sieving all the gravels, you can find some diamonds.
And that secondary is sort of counterintuitive because the secondary is actually the ones that we found earliest in history.
Oh, just before, maybe,
yes.
We are lucky to be here at the museum, and thanks to Eloise, we have an amazing samples of what we call a conglomerate.
Yes, I was waiting to see this. I didn't mean to go ahead, sorry.
Yes, this is the way you can find the diamonds in a secondary deposit with some gravels here, and maybe you can see here one diamond. So it's really amazing, and these samples probably comes from Brazil.
So this conglomerate, it really is all stuck together. It looked like someone glued it together. And that diamond is so perfect.
Yes.
Right there in the middle of the, it looks like cement, but it's cement that's made by, again, the universe. It's not made by people.
No, that's really amazing. So that's really the way people could find this diamond in secondary deposits.
Thank you so much for that beautiful piece of rock with rock. So the primary deposit, you call it primary, you the scientists.
Yes, because it was found after the secondary deposit, but the primary deposit, because we are really here in place where the volcanic diamonds, the volcanic pipes, bring all the diamonds to the surface of the earth. So that's really the place, the arrival place of the diamonds.
And that's why you say kimberlite pipes, because there are these sort of frozen pipes from the volcanic activity.
And this is, we have an example of the Kimberley mines, which was the first discovered primary deposit in South Africa.
And that's why it's called kimberlite, because that's when they first figured out everything begins with the kimberlite.
It was a very important place for the diamond industry. At that time, maybe 90% of the diamonds came from this mine.
Which is why we're looking at something called the Eureka. And a clue as to why it's called Eureka, Greek for I found it, is that this is the kimberlite mine named after the whole process, but it all starts with one pebble. Yes. It starts in 1866 with a child's plaything. Starts with the Jacobs family farm and a little boy who liked to collect pebbles. So he was doing secondary mining, to give a clue,
from the river,
from the streams. And he would bring pebbles back for his sister to play marbles with in the yard. And a visitor who had been to Brazil was attending dinner at the family's farm and sees the little girl playing with the pebbles and picks one particular pebble up and goes to Mrs. Jacobs and says, I think, may I please buy this to have it tested because I actually think this is a diamond. Mrs. Jacobs said, we don't sell children's toys to visitors at our home, please take it. 21 carats to begin with, 10 carats now, and some carving and some time later after 1866, there it is, the Eureka. And the Eureka is in the Kimberley Museum.
Yes.
And it starts the diamond rush, which the reason why we showed it next to that picture of the mine with all the sort of what looks like strings is because this is something that got called the human termites.
Yes, that's a really incredible story for the beginning of this mining operation with all the ropes bringing all the gravel out of the hole, all the
deep pit, which humans dug, so completely dug by hand by humans.
Yes.
And if you didn't stay, if you left for 2 days, you would lose your claim.
You lose your claim, yeah.
So people didn't leave, and actually, I wanted to go back, I'm sorry. People actually stayed, and it was where Cecil Rhodes made all his fortune because Cecil Rhodes figured out that a good thing to do was to supply these people with the tools they needed, because if they had to stay down there at the bottom of those cords, if you look at the buildings at the top, you get an idea of how deep this hole was getting. And that's why we then showed you modern day mining, because this is really the product of the of the procedure.
Yes, it was the beginning of the De Beers company. Of course, you know about De Beers. Nowadays, what a primary deposit looks like, for example, here we have the open pit mining in Canada, in the Gay-Eckel mine. And you see the most productive mines are really located in quite hostile areas. Here you can imagine all the difficulties to dig and to mine during the winter season.
The right picture is the winter, the left picture is the summer, and it's counterintuitive. You actually have to do everything in the winter because you need heavy trucks with the tons and tons of rocks, right? And
exactly, it's so difficult to mine. Of course, you have some difficulties with productivity, so you need to be really clever with good geologists to understand if you can find diamonds in this mine.
So at the end of the process, what everyone's looking for is diamonds. And here we have what?
Maybe it could be a one-day recovery of diamonds. You can see all the diamonds, crystals you find here during this day walking. And you have different size, different colors, different shapes of diamonds. Maybe the vast majority of these samples cannot be used for the high jewelry. Maybe only one, this very clear, very transparent octahedral shaped diamonds could be used for high jewelry.
I could imagine that beautiful triangle, our Indian ancestors thinking of doing something with that too, because they evaluated by clarity, they called it the water, they evaluated with candlelight, and they would hold a crystal like you're holding that one right now.
And the perfect shape.
And that was what mattered. But all those diamonds could be very useful because, after all, science and industry are
mainly the industry is in need of diamonds because of the property of hardness.
But going more in, again, talking about the history and that movement toward the ideal optical properties, moving toward making the diamond reveal its ability to reflect and refract light. The ring on the left, incredibly rare, somewhere between the 11th and 13th century, so roughly 800 years ago from northern Pakistan, is a part of the Zucker collection, and it is in a book which Gisela will share the information with you, which is by the great Jack Ogden, an author, a scholar, a friend of the school and of us, who actually won his PhD in England by his own autodidactic research. An amazing person, and this book is really your friend if you're interested in finding out more about the history of diamond. There you have diamonds, just like Olivier's been showing you, just like the one from the museum collection, embedded into this ring. On the right, you have more of the diamond going again from adamas to diamant, because the European interest, as well illustrated by the lapidaries, is also to make it move towards showing its beauty. Even if you look at the word again, or the evolution in our favorite lapidaries. In the 12th century, Marbot of Rennes, one of a bishop up in Rennes, wrote about consolidating all the ancient knowledge, and he said that a diamond could protect a knight when he went into battle from being killed. By the 14th century, by the 1300s, Jean de Mandeville was talking about it for love, for the linking together of loyalty and marriage and family. And when you think of that, you also think toward the modern ring. The ring on the right is from the 1600s. So as the interest in having the beauty of the diamonds, the power revealed through the beauty, you also have the evolution toward first levels of cut, which is the table cut.
Exactly. So what is a table cut? That's quite easy. You take your octahedral shape and you just cut one part, the upper part of the diamonds, and you obtain this octahedral shape with this table cut.
So the table, you want the light to go in the table. The idea, the reason for it, is so that the light can get in, do its thing inside the stone, and get back out.
The beginning of the reflection and the beginning of the new properties for the diamonds in use. Is light,
which will lead toward finally
developed.
Quickly tonight, but it took a few hundred years. Say from 1600 for the table cut through to 1919, when Tolkowski, perfect combination, both a diamantaire and a mathematician, writes his dissertation, for his PhD, on the perfect.
Yes, so the perfect shape for the modern brilliant cut, and he really described and found the real angles, proportion, shape to obtain the maximum brilliance for the gemstone. So the path of the light inside the gemstone for the maximum brilliance.
And that's a model of a brilliant cut that you're holding.
Yes, exactly. 57 facets to obtain this perfect cut round brilliant diamond.
And in order to obtain this brilliant cut diamond, the brilliance of the brilliant cut, if we may, you have to give up a lot of the original weight, don't you?
Yes, exactly, because you can imagine from the rough octahedral shape to this diamond shape, perfect cut. Of course, you lose.
You can lose 50%. You can even lose 70%.
Yeah.
I think nowadays with lasers, they're sometimes achieving only a 30% loss. Remember, let's think about what diamonds were about. They were about power and indestructibility. Now they're about beauty, but they're also about science, aren't they? Why are we looking at this picture of a kind of dreary-looking industrial lab?
Yes, exactly, because we are talking about synthetic diamonds. And of course, for the need for the industry, we need a lot of diamonds. More and more yellow, brown, black diamonds are used for the jewelry.
Sure, chocolate diamonds, black diamonds in chains. We love to use them in all different ways. The more we love diamonds, the more we use the different types.
And different colors.
Yes.
So the industry created synthetic diamonds. The beginning of the synthetic diamonds, first synthetic diamonds was in the 1950s by General Electric in the US. There is two main methods to create, to synthesize synthetic diamonds. The first one is HPHT, and we have here an example. HPHT for high pressure, high temperature. So of course you have a source of carbon. You put your carbon with high pressure, high temperature, like in nature, and you will crystallize this carbon into a diamond. And here we have some examples of the size you can reach. More than 10 carat, this colorless here on your right, 10 carat cut faceted diamonds, colorless diamonds, so we can imagine that the rough is more than 20 carat. And the vast majority of the synthetic diamonds are then treated to enhance the color or to transform, to change the color as blue, yellow, pink, green diamonds.
Unless they're used for science, and our interest as diamond lovers is the use of them, in this case, for the synthetic for science, as in drilling your teeth at the dentist or looking for oil to fuel or whatever we do with oil. You've got to have a drill that has diamond, so diamond has to be at the tip of every single drill, which means that that method's not enough. What's this other method?
Yeah, the second method, developed also in the 50s, but not developed for industry at that time, is CVD, synthetic diamonds, CVD for chemical vapor deposition. That means you don't need pressure to realize these methods, but you need some methane with a CH4, so one carbon, 4 hydrogen atoms. And you will cut these atoms, so you will separate, you will have one carbon atoms, and these carbon atoms will depose layer by layer with the seeds of synthetic diamonds and crystallize slowly, layer by layers as a diamond, as a synthetic diamonds.
So in a way, you're microwave baking a diamond.
Yes, almost. And you can reach quite large also and quite pure, very pure diamonds, very interesting for optics properties and also used for jewelry. Here we have some samples, more than 9 carats.
And what's the
diamonds.
ugly thing on the lower left?
Oh, that's really the rough. Like when you open the device, you have this kind of crust. You need to laser to cut the crust.
I prefer this rough.
Well, of course.
Thank you to Eloise and to the Museum of Mineralogy. I think it's good to see the difference because that's a diamond that we love. This is a diamond we use, in my opinion.
Yes, that's a diamond we use for the industry and sometimes for the jewelry, but you can obtain a lot of colors, a lot of samples.
But that's the thing, we can't find enough, so we do make in industry, but when we do want to find them, at the same time that they're so difficult to find, they are all around the world. So let's wrap up our discussion tonight with going around the world looking for diamonds.
Yes, historically the first diamond we said were found in India. In a very specific area of India, we call it Golconda, here. And of course, it was a secondary mining deposits. So as we explained, by sieving the gravels.
And it is something that India was the source. If you wanted diamonds, you had to figure out how to negotiate or travel the Silk Road in order to obtain diamonds, which is why they were so incredibly rare and few in Europe.
For centuries, yes, until the 17th century.
Until the Indian mines become tired out around the first part of the 1700s. And until that time, this engraving on the right is a kind of romanticized view of what might have been going on to obtain the diamonds. And until that time, very few Europeans knew what actually was going on. One of them was Jean-Baptiste Tavernier.
The famous Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, we love it at l'École.
We love, and in fact, we are very fortunate because l'École supported Cécile Lugan doing her doctorate. I think it's about over 700 pages that she wrote of original research. And from that, and also with our dear François Farge, and with a coordination of scientists, replicas were created, and this is a book of essays about the replicas and also the other diamonds that Jean-Baptiste Tavernier brought back from India over his many, many trips up until the age of 80. He actually negotiated directly with Aurangzeb, the great Mughal, who asked him to even inventory all his diamonds and all his pearls and all his spinels and all his rubies. And thanks to that, in his memoirs, we have marvels like that diagram of the Great Mughal diamond. So he got to actually see the legendary Great Mughal diamond in 1665. And he brought back in 1668 1,000 diamonds and more, and the diamonds on the cover of this book are the 20 most beautiful, which have so much history to them we can't begin to start, but they were recut. And the 20 replicas are in the school and also in the MNH, and now for us to look at. We put this Great Mughal, it's gone, it's lost, we don't know where it is, next to a photograph of the Orloff diamond, because the Orloff diamond is the largest, if not the largest, one of the largest Indian cut diamonds still remaining. Because what would happen is these diamonds would make their way to Europe and they could be recut many times. I mean, even recently, the great Wittelsbach diamond was just recut again. So it yes. Breaks my heart to think about it. So we love it when, for instance, the Orloff diamond is still in the Kremlin Diamond Fund in Moscow, and we can, if we could get to Moscow, go see it. It's in the scepter of a very great lady, Catherine the Great, a much maligned person who actually presided over an age of enlightenment in Russia. And powerful women tend to be maligned, and she was much maligned. Whatever you think about her, she did indeed feminize the power of diamonds. Let's go to that. And she wore diamonds as jewelry and as fashion, but a diamond like this, an enormous one, how much? 189 carats?
Yes.
She put in her scepter. And this is something that was bought in 1773 by the Orloff. Orloff was her favorite for a while until he was replaced. He helped her get rid of her husband, the Tsar, so that she could become the Empress of Russia. He was her favorite, as I say, until he was sent away. But close to the time when he was losing favor, for St. Catherine's Day, he gave her this diamond in 1773. She put it on her scepter. It was a symbol of her power. It's an example, again, of how the diamonds of the royal jewels, of the crown jewels of Europe, are either Indian, or once the Indian became exhausted, we now go to Brazil, and around 1725, diamonds were found for the first time in the places where they were looking, the Portuguese were looking for gold. Yeah, and and our friend Rui Galopim de Carvalho has been doing research, and we quote him from his recent webinar on diamonds to talk about Brazilian diamonds, Portuguese diamonds, and how Portuguese diamonds enrich the crown jewels, not just of Portugal, but of the world.
Yes, in many crown jewels. Here in this area we call it Diamantina. So this is the place where you can find diamond in Brazil, like this one, again, so really lucky to have it here. And in this place it's also a secondary deposit, so we can remind it. And yes, on the next slide you have wonderful
an example of the kinds of fabulous diamonds that came out of Brazil. Now what happened? People were concerned, suspicious,
yes.
Not even believing that maybe the Brazilian diamonds were diamonds.
Yeah, because for centuries the diamonds came only from India.
However, the Portuguese were smart. They sent the diamonds to India also because Indians knew how to cut, to have them cut, but also, shall we say, to rebrand them as Indian diamonds.
Probably.
And the Indians, knowing diamonds as well as they did, since the Artha Shastra, knew very well that they were good diamonds, and they did not hesitate, the Maharajas did not hesitate to buy them and put them into sets of crown jewels like the Maharaja of Baroda, for example. And you end up, of course, with just a little box like that, was just an example of the splendors of the crown jewels that included diamonds from India and Brazil. Not until 1866, yes. Until after that discovery.
1866, the main, very important discovery of Africa, South African diamonds in what you call a primary deposit for the first time.
So at the time of the diamond rush in South Africa, the British Empire, shall we call it, is paramount and has the access to these diamonds the most. Exactly. Hence why you see the enormous number of great big diamonds from South Africa in
the English crown jewels.
But you also see them in the crown jewels of wealthy America, because at the same time, the Industrial Revolution, there's no income taxes in America. Platinum is also found in South America, South Africa and South America, and the explosion of new wealth, the explosion of what we call sometimes dollar princesses in America, the diamonds find their way into the world of the Belle Epoque. We go through, from our diamond point of view, to World War II and to after World War II, Stalin. The reason why we're looking at a map of Russia is because Stalin is thinking about that other importance of diamonds, the scientific, and he knows that Russia has tremendous reserves of oil. And since he's starting the Cold War, he's going to be cut off, Russia's going to be cut off, Soviet Union is going to be cut off from the rest of the world for diamond supply, and where they need diamonds to get to their oil. So he sends geologists to Siberia. Olivier can explain why. Why did he send diamonds?
Yes, because we know...
Not because he was punishing them, necessarily.
Not yet. But because we know that diamonds were found in the oldest areas, geological areas on Earth. We call it craton. And in this place, of course, we know all the cratons on Earth, but not all the cratons bear diamonds. So you need to go to do samples to check for the quality of the gravel, of the soil. And of course, when they are looking for this place, this area in the Republic of Yakutia, they found diamonds. But they were a bit disappointed.
They were disappointed because?
Because the quality of the diamonds were really, really important, really great quality for the high jewelry. A lot of very interesting, nice quality diamonds.
Not so much for industry.
Not so much for industry, but...
Hence, fast forward is why now the Russian source of diamonds is so very important in the world of diamond sourcing.
Exactly, very important now when we talk about the Russian quality for diamonds.
But it's a story of Africa, very much. The 20th century and the 21st century, the diamond story is also a story of Africa. Yes,
a very important country for diamond deposits, for the whole diamond industry is Botswana. Botswana is very important because it was maybe one of the poorest countries at that time before the discovery of the diamond deposits. And when they discover all the deposits, all the diamonds in Botswana, the government decided to create a joint venture between De Beers and the country. The name was Debswana for De Beers and Botswana. And since that time, they created really a wealthy country, developing the country, developing the roads, hospitals, knowledge, the education programs. And in Botswana, we still find very important and very large diamonds like this one, more than 1,000 carats. So it's really huge, thanks also to the development of new mining methods.
And isn't it the most high quality ore is what you say, right? The one that's going to produce the best diamonds. The Zhuaneng mine, is it?
Yes, also there is different mines in Botswana. You have the map here.
But the continuing search around the world, geologists looking at how the continents were formed, they see that Canada, the north of Canada, actually, in a way, originally broke off from what is now Siberia. And geologists like this man, Chuck Fipke, this is his memoir, From Fire into Ice. Chuck Fipke was a young geologist at the end of the 1970s, having had his education in Canada, goes all over the world, absolutely everywhere. And if you read his memoir, Ghislain will give you the link. you can see some amazing pictures of him everywhere, sliding up and down rainforests and looking for minerals everywhere.
And there's a very nice picture also for the protection of mosquitoes. You like to.
Everybody's wearing protection, but he doesn't wear any protection because he's that kind of a guy. But Chuck Fipke, at the same time that he's going all over the world looking for minerals for all the big mining companies, including diamonds for De Beers, he keeps mentioning, what about Canada? And the core samples that have been done, they do not feel that it's financially worth it. It's not enough ROI. They just say, no, we're not the least bit interested in exploring because the area, as you showed in the picture, is frozen or it's liquid and it's just impossible. Fipke doesn't give up, and Fipke convinces a friend of his who's also a pilot and a geologist, conveniently, so he believes and understands the theory, to fly all over Canada for years and years and years collecting these core samples. Until finally, the end of the story is very good mines and a very expensive divorce, because this book tells the story of how, well, I was off looking for minerals and my baby was born and I wasn't there, and it's fascinating. But what about these Canadian mines?
Yes, in the Canadian mine, we talk about Diavik, we talk about Ekati. They produce very high quality diamonds, and in Canada they decided to brand all the diamonds from the mines to the cut products with a specific mark, Canada mark. So you can follow your diamonds from the mine to the finished product, and with a really good ethics and really good quality in Canada.
All over the world. So to wrap up, where can we find diamonds today?
Yes, we talk about Canada, we talk about Russia, we talk about Brazil. There is still some diamonds in Brazil. All the south of Africa, many countries like Angola, Namibia, Lesotho, etc. And Australia also, very famous for diamonds, pink diamonds. Even if some mines are now depleted, so they will stop by the end of the year.
So pretty soon we may turn Australia white instead of green.
Yeah, probably.
For diamonds.
And China also, we can find diamonds in China, even if we don't know a lot about the Chinese deposits.
Super mysterious about China. Returning to Africa, and I love this picture of this incredible, the human scale of that diamond. Now that's a mine that was sort of turned away from and then turned back to with better diamond methods, right? Diamond mining.
Yes, exactly. We wanted to highlight nowadays how we mine for diamonds with very specific mining methods, with UV light, with sound, ultrasound, to find and to recover, to find the large diamonds before they enter the process, the mining process, and they be cut.
So in other words,
damaged.
we used to bang up a lot of the really large diamonds before we ever discovered them.
Exactly, that's why maybe some old mines are reopened, mined again to find these really large diamonds because they are more economically interesting to mine.
With better methods. Fact is that it goes right back to our original drawings and miniature paintings for the Sultan's daughter with the big
open pits,
pit, but it's trucks now. There, if you can see, there's a tiny little truck there somewhere.
Huge holes.
How many tons of rock for one day?
For some time you can bring 1 ton to 10 tons, and some specialists told me that you need 1 day to go from the top to the bottom of the hole. 1 day
driving in a truck.
Driving all the circle round.
Around and around and around, but you can come up with beautiful diamonds like that one.
So that's...
The fact is, diamonds today are being found in better ways, being mined ethically and responsibly. The story of diamonds today is 99.9% best practices, yes.
And traceability and best practices, yes.
You were an officer of the Responsible Jewelry Council. I was very involved as a director of training, communicating about it. And I also was involved with the Kimberley process when I worked for Tiffany, because I had to keep a group of paper chain to prove that everything was responsible.
Just a few words about the Kimberley process, established in 2003. It's like a certificate for the rough diamonds. So every lot of rough diamonds need to have this Kimberley process just to be sure that all the mine was done with the best practices. And all this certificate will follow the diamonds through all the chain until the cutting process.
It's a system of international law that finally worked. Which, to end, we're returning to Botswana. It's a beautiful story, and it's a story of love and also people caring. When Meghan Markle was still Meghan Markle, she got engaged to Prince Harry, and the two of them decided to make a diamond engagement ring with a Botswana diamond in the middle, a beautiful Botswana diamond, and then there's two diamonds on the side coming from his mom, Princess Diana's own ring. So the combination of the old, the sentiment, the new, and the feeling about this incredible country and what they've been able to do with their diamonds.
Yes, and we have a nice quote from the former president of Botswana. Maybe you can read with your better accent.
Well, I like the way you say it too, but for our people, every diamond purchase represents food on the table, better living conditions, better health care, safe drinking water, and think about that, more roads to connect so people can work and get educated, and to connect our remote communities, and much, much more. This gentleman also spoke to someone you know.
Yes, exactly. When I met the CEO of De Beers, he told me one of the first time he went to Botswana. So he met, of course, the president of Botswana, and they both visited the mine in Botswana. And the president of Botswana asked the CEO of De Beers, "What do you see?" So just around a big hole. And the CEO of De Beers was a bit disturbed. He said, "Well, I see a hole, I see some workers, I see some trucks, I see some people walking." And he didn't know what to answer. And the president of Botswana answered, "What I see is a way to give food to all my country for years and years. If we didn't had this hole here, maybe we can feed one family, two family for 1 year, thanks to the farming, to animals, etc. But now, with this hole, I can feed my country, I can develop my country, and that's the truth, because Botswana was really in advance for all the mining methods, for all the development of the country, and became one of the healthiest country in Africa." Start taking your questions. Ready? Wasn't the diamonds engagement ring promoted by De Beers as a way to sell more diamonds?
Well,
that's a good question.
If you like to tune in to the old show Mad Men and learn about the rise of advertising in New York after World War II, the rise of this culture we live in, this culture of communication and selling by media was as much a part of post-World War II as the GI Bill, the mortgage for everyone in America, everyone could go to college on the GI Bill, and of course the baby boom, of which I'm a product. Yes, it was, but it also, it was a woman who thought of it in the advertising agency, and the woman who thought of this was a very, very educated woman who was thinking about that giant tradition, the whole thing, and she thought about the fact, what does a diamond mean? So yes, it was, of course, business is business, but it also was connecting to the sentiment. So yes.
Maybe another question, quite interesting question. Was there a custom of using colored diamonds? Maybe it's for you also.
Both of us, I think. Colored diamonds are there. We have beautiful examples in history. There's an exquisite one I'm thinking of that's in the Qatar Museum collection that has all, from the 1700s, all different colors of diamonds used in an exquisite pastel way. There's another piece in the V&A. There are pieces, historic pieces, that do show. However, there also could be the wish to get rid of color, which I find hilariously funny. First person who told me about that, because now, of course, everyone wants color. I adore it. You adore it. You know a lot about it. I don't know much about it, but I love it. I have a good eye for it. But Francois Farge was the person who taught me about this. He wrote an article about the incredible gift box with all the diamonds and the portrait inside of Louis XIV that's in the Louvre Museum in the Galerie d'Apollon. And his research on that, because they let him have access, so you have a perfect thing there because you have someone who really understands history but who's a great mineralogist. And he found that the diamonds were many colors, but they were cleverly backed with foil to extinguish the color because the goal was to make them white. So colors sometimes were used in a pastel way. You can find them, but generally I think the search was toward the white, don't you?
Yes, I think so.
Until, of course, the blue diamond, which is a subject for another day.
Yes, we had a great conversation also with Eloise from the museum about the color of the effects.
Eloise,
it was very interesting.
Oh,
to
Eloise
see
did a lecture on colored
where
diamonds, which is unforgettable.
the
which we
colors
should-
of diamonds come from.
And of course, there's the great blue diamond of France, and we'll be
Yeah.
here till tomorrow if we start talking about that great blue diamond. But that great blue diamond, which is now the Hope diamond after being stolen and cut down, was here. It's in those replicas when it first came from India. It was 115 carats.
I think we don't have no more questions. Thanks, Ghislain. No more questions, so it's time to...
stay with us. It's very important. And the reason why I have this slide up is because we like to say, it was André Malraux, I think, who said, one of the first people who said it, but a few people have said something like it, that a great marriage is like a long conversation that always seems too short. Well, we try to make our educational experience like that, which means that at the end, we begin, we go further. And to go further with us, contact us, as we had an onslaught of it from this morning. Contact us on Instagram messaging, because Olivier and I will answer you directly. And some of you know we were talking with you this afternoon. So stay in contact, see all our movies on our e-library. We have more than 40 movies. Through this link, you can find them. We have 10 movies about the crown jewels of France by Leonard, which are on Instagram. We have 10 movies about men's jewels by Ghislain, which are on Instagram. Many, many, many ways to continue learning from home via our social media platforms.
Yeah, thanks to all the team, thanks to you.
Thank you so much, our heroes behind the scenes. Thank you, Eloise Gaillou, for all your inspiration and support. She's here. I almost feel like dragging her on the camera. Laurent hates for us to say it, but thank you, Laurent, and our wonderful team that made this possible, sometimes against all odds.
Thank you, Inezita.
Thank you, Olivier.
Bye-bye.